29.
28 seconds.
27.
26.
25 seconds.
24. 23.
22 seconds.
21 seconds.
20 seconds. 19.
18.
17 seconds.
16.
15 seconds.
14.
13 seconds.
12. 11.
10 seconds. 9.
8.
7.
6.
6 what?
Copy.
5 seconds.
3, 2, 1.
Hi folks, and welcome back to the Scotch Tracker. Today we'll be discussing Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and today we've got a full panel of co-hosts. Thank you very much for joining the discussion. And thank you for joining as a co-host in general, including today, Marcelo. I wondered, what are some of your favourite episodes of Deep Space Nine? Do you want to go first?
Well, my favorite episode of Deep Space Nine is the pilot episode, and then there are a couple other scattering episodes throughout the series that I particularly like. Like, I'm not really good at naming episode titles off the top of my head. I just think that Deep Space Nine is a wonderful, wonderful Star Trek series, and I thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate that.
Cool. Thank you for joining. Yeah. Robbie?
I'm quite fond of Emissary. I think it's my favourite pilot of all the shows. I quite I love Far Beyond the Stars, Duet, Second Skin, The Darkness and the Light, His Way, which is a bit of a silly episode, even kind of unethical because Odo basically uses Kira's holographic likeness to one-up her on a kind of fake date, but there's something about Vic Fontaine's jovial kind of pally attitude that I love about it, and I think I can really relate to Odo. I've forgotten the name. I think it's called Shakar. When Shakar comes around and is Odo is kind of jealous of Shakar and Kira, because I think a lot of people have been in that situation that Odo's in. What other episodes? It's Only a Paper Moon.
Cool.
I think that's a really touching episode, when Nog has to kind of deal with the trauma of losing his leg, and he closes himself in the holosuite for Vic to finally give him a confidence to go out on Deep Space Nine and feel at ease again.
Cool. That's a great selection of episodes. Glenn, wondered if...
Well, EDT just hit on pretty much every single episode that I was going to mention, but it's also one other, Trials and Tribulations. I love the wonderful nod to the original series there, and the humor involved.
So, what's your favorite character from DS9?
For me, it would have to be Garrick, absolutely. Any episode he was in, I was glued to the set when I was watching it.
Cool.
I'm really struggling to decide between Kira and Odo because I love them both so much. I think I just love them both equally.
My favorite character from Deep Space Nine, hands down, is Jadzia Dax.
Oh, cool.
And Stop. So, yeah. There's that.
That's cool. So what do you think are like the best character relationships in Deep Space Nine? Marcelo?
I particularly like Odo and Quark. I think they have a really interesting bromance, and I love their partay. I just, other than that, Garrick and Julian Bashir are wonderful to watch because the sexual tension between them from the very beginning, whether the writers intended it or not, is just there 100%. And it's a joy to watch their dynamic. It's quite wonderful.
Cool.
I think I quite like Kira and Odo because you don't really see Odo as being a loving person. You see him as an outsider, and he's so stoic, kind of like Picard, that you would never imagine him being romantically interested in anyone somehow. But when you find out, it's quite shocking. At least it was for me. And I love that. I love that Odo's very meticulous about how he goes about trying to win over Kira. And I think that when Kira finds out, that relationship isn't as great because we don't see as much of him afterwards. It's like all the build up to Odo kind of asking her out and them getting together, but then afterwards they don't really go anywhere with that. And I wish we'd seen Kira's perspective of their relationship a bit more. Apart from that, I love Cisco and Jake. I think they had a great relationship.
Excellent. I'm going to go a little younger. I'm going to say Jake and Nog because of the fact that we got to watch both of them grow so much during the course of the series, and they both had amazing character arcs.
Cool. I think probably one of my favorites is O'Brien and Bashir. I think there's so many to choose from, and yeah, I thought you picked some great ones there. Do you have a favorite season of the show, Glenn?
Oh, pretty much anything from the third season on is my favorite. Oops, sorry. My dog's trying to escape. There.
Do you think that was due to the introduction of the Defiant?
That was part of it. Just the first two seasons were pretty much devoted to character development. Yes, there was action. Yes, there was intrigue. But once all the character development was there, then the action was able to take off, and the storylines were able to just explode from there.
Cool. And Robbie?
I think for me, the show kind of gets to a high point at season 6. I think a lot of Star Trek shows do. And season 7 usually is a bit weaker. I think season 7 had, for TNG at least, had quite a weak season. I think Deep Space Nine still had a strong 7th season, but things do feel a bit more laid back. And I just like the kind of culmination of the Dominion war arc in that season almost, because you have Gul Dukat for 6 episodes on the station. He's in control of Deep Space Nine, and that has some really interesting dynamics between how Odo and Kira are kind of resisting away, but they're still on the station, and how Kira feels about Odo when he doesn't do when he's told, when they're trying to stop the Dominion from, I think, basically deactivating the mines, and Odo was supposed to, I can't remember exactly what, but he was supposed to do something that would help Kira and Rom to stop the mines, but he wasn't because he was too focused on linking with a changeling, and the way he kind of brushes it off. And in my headcanon, I feel like I know that when they link in the Great Link, they exchange ideas, but I wonder if that changeling that we see throughout the show, I wonder if every time she linked with Odo, if she was kind of had some kind of control over him, because the more she does it, the more Odo kind of bends to her will almost, and then eventually we obviously get him doing what she wants and going to the Great Link.
I would have to say that my favorite season of DS9 is season 4, because I really think that they, in that season particularly, Ira Stephen Bear really made the switch to serialized storytelling, and I really love the goalness of Ira Stephen Bear to basically kind of force Rick Berman to say, no, this is the way we're going, and no matter what you say, I'm going to go this way. So that in particular got me really excited to see a new era of Star Trek. and what happens after that, everything that happens after that, I really enjoy. There's only one part of DS9 that I don't like at all, and for those of you who have been on future panels with me, you probably know what it is. So I'm not going to mention that here, but it really, really, made me angry.
Frustrates you. Okay. I was trying to remember which aspect that you were talking about.
All right, so it's the death of Dax. I can't
right, okay.
stand that.
Jetsuga.
That really ticks me off beyond end. Like, I don't have a problem with the actress who came in to replace her, but the behind the scenes drama and the way that was handled really soured the remainder of the series for me. But with that being said, I love Deep Space Nine because it introduced a new kind of storytelling to the Star Trek universe that I think was bold, brave, and impactful. And so many years later, it still impacts me. The older I get, the more I like it.
Cool. Do you think? I wondered. Before this discussion, I wondered if like everyone thought that like the show made enough usage of the aspect of the show where part of the setting was the Gamma Quadrant.
I think they did the best they could have. But I really think that because of the constraints and when the show was made, I think that the writers' hands were tied a little bit. Like, I would have loved to seen a show like this today, because the places that they could go in the Gamma Quadrant and the species that they could see would be outstanding in my mind. But I'm curious to see what everybody else on the panel thinks about that.
I think in the first season, it's very kind of stereotypical when the people from the Gamma Quadrant aren't very interesting. And I suppose that's a kind of failing of most of the Star Trek shows the first season, but this isn't directly to do with the Gamma Quadrant maybe, but kind of felt like quite close to TNG in the way that season 1 had aliens that could have almost been in a TNG season, and they weren't really making full use of the space station setting, which you really have to if you're having a spin-off. That's the whole point, differentiating yourself and having a different setting. But I think they could have maybe explored the Gamma Quadrant in a more interesting way, because mostly we just get aliens come through from the quadrant, but I still love the concept.
I agree. They definitely could have done a lot more with the Gamma Quadrant, but once they got into the serialized storytelling, like Marcelo said, they pretty much ran out of room. They didn't have the real estate available to explore the Gamma Quadrant once they got to that point. But they could have done a little bit more in the first 3 seasons, I think.
Do you have like either a favorite a favorite minor character, recurring minor character, or like a favorite like alien species?
I'm going to be kind of typical and go for the Cardassians, because we'd already had them in TNG, but they were really made a threat by Gul Dukat, and he's such a slimy, hateable character, but he's deep in Deep Space Nine, because I'm not saying he's a good person at all, he's completely horrible, but he has a bit of depth to him, and he has a really kind of sickening affection for Kira when he basically ordered the killing of her family, a lot of her species, and I just kind of love the dynamic he brought, and I wonder if it's because Marco Amo, he kind of had an affection for Nana Visitor, which I didn't kind of like that when I heard about it in the documentary, but it does make things interesting to watch.
No, like I don't particularly have minor characters that I enjoy or kind of are standing out to me at this moment. But my favorite villain in the Deep Space Nine universe, to back off what Robbie just said, I think Gul Dukat is the antithesis of evil in this series, and what he does. The way that he slowly loses his mind throughout the series is just a pleasure to watch. If there's, I particularly like dark stories, and I feel like I say this on every panel, but as a writer, I really appreciate it when somebody just goes mad very, very slowly. So yeah, he's my favorite villain of the whole piece. That really didn't answer your question, but nonetheless.
Yeah, you kind of did. Thanks.
I think that was a great answer, actually. My answer is, again, the same answer it was before Garrick, because he is a recurring character, but I kind of consider him to be a main character. I love the intrigue surrounding him. I love the fact that you never quite know whether he's telling the truth, whether he's lying, but the fact that no matter how evil he seems to get, there actually seems to be a genuine love and affection between him and Bashir and some of the other characters, and he actually does learn to care for people. There's a little bit of the Cardassian equivalent of humanity that you see creeping throughout the series, and I just absolutely adore that.
Cool.
I think. Oh, sorry.
Yep. No, go ahead.
I think I love that Garrick's this character. That he's ambiguous, as a lot of the Deep Space Nine characters are. I mean, Gul Dukat, basically, in a way, like a kind of Hitler character, and Kira was a terrorist before she was on Deep Space Nine, and she didn't like the idea of Starfleet coming on and taking control of the station, because I assume she was kind of, from what she'd seen of Starfleet before, she didn't like their ideals, but then she grows to really love the people on Starfleet, and then becomes in control of the station, but still loves the Bajor people. And Garrick is just wonderful because he's this character who can do horrible things, and Sisko sometimes uses that to his advantage, like in the Pale Moonlight. And I think he was only in about 30 episodes, but it seems like so much longer, because you just treasure every single scene you get of Garrick. I mean, Andrew Robinson brings like a kind of wild-eyed wisdom, but a real darkness to him, and he's really just magnetic to watch. It's almost like Garrick he's had coffee all day or something, because he's just so energetic. And also another character that I really love, I suppose you could call him returning, but Damar, because he basically had a couple of lines in his first episode. I can't remember the name of the episode, but when they were on that Cardassian ship and they were trying to attack the Klingons, and Kira was on that ship.
I think it's Return to Grace.
Return to Grace, yeah, that's it. And then he just grows into this wonderful character who fights against the Cardassians and realizes the Dominion isn't for him, when he realizes that the Dominion is so... they dispense of what isn't useful to them so easily.
And Glenn, it looks like you agreed with the Damar.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I loved his character arc as well. I love the fact that he went from completely loyal, blind following Cardassian soldier to, again, somebody that has a heart and a mind and wants to really help his people.
Cool. So we've had a question coming in, which I don't completely understand. But basically, like, I was wondering, like, how well you think like DS9 has sort of the legacy of DS9 has been portrayed or depicted. I was thinking about how like Seven in the series Star Trek Picard, you've had obviously like Picard and Riker and Troy, and now going to be Guinan and Q, and returning, and as well Seven of Nine and Janeway in Star Trek Nemesis. So there's been aspects of the various other Star Trek spin-off shows. Do you think like DS9 has had like as a stronger legacy, or
No, I think particularly, like, although I don't agree with this assessment at all. If you guys know me, I love new Star Trek, but I think that especially Picard is going to Picard and to some extent Discovery, for the people that don't like it, that is going to take the new Black Sheep level away from what DS9 used to be. Because, there are so many fans out there who get so attached to a particular part of Star Trek, and they're unwilling to accept new things. So I don't know if you guys sort of get what I'm trying to drive at here, but I think that especially nowadays, DS9 will be more praised because certain people and certain individuals don't like the new incarnations of Star Trek. So
I think
yeah,
it has a really strong legacy because it really broke a lot of boundaries. I mean, it when you look back at it now, it's the most modern of the Berman era shows because it may have not had the best ratings, but that's what really propelled it, and the great writers, of course, to really have unpredictable, overarching, nuanced stories and characters. And it's just wonderful that for Netflix it has had this kind of resurgence, and it had a wonderful documentary, and now we're getting another Voyager documentary. And when I think of the legacy, I think of just how bold it was. I've actually been planning to buy the DS9 Avatar books. They're set after DS9 Season 7, so basically a Season 8. And I'm looking forward to what happens there. And I really liked the writer's pitch they had in What We Leave Left Behind, which was really interesting. I think I recently rewatched all of Deep Space Nine, and when I finished that last episode and you see the camera zoom out from DS9, I just wanted more, and that's why I'm going to be reading these books. And just thinking of what amazing stories you could still have in a Season 8 with Vedek, Kira, and all those great characters in different places.
Yeah, excellent. I definitely think that it has a lasting legacy, and I also think that if you watch it more than once, every single time you watch it, you get increased nuances, increased levels of drama, increased levels of story, and somehow they managed to magically make it relate to today, 25 years later. So that's a big part of the legacy. The other thing is they weren't afraid to go darker than other Star Treks, but they didn't push the boundaries too far. For example, I thought the Battlestar Galactica remake went way too over the top with the drama. I think Deep Space Nine balanced drama, action, humor, sci-fi, all of the elements absolutely perfectly. I think the only other non-Star Trek show that could even come close would be Babylon 5. So I think its legacy is the fact that it was able to go heavily into drama without going too far. I think most of today's shows do go too dark. I think the first season of Discovery was far too dark, but they pulled back in the second season and they brought it closer to canon, which I think was what a lot of the fans were having a problem with, was the fact that the first season of Discovery, they just seemed to completely ignore canon. Then they managed to retcon it in the second season, and they lightened the tone somewhat.
I wondered, thank you for all those comments. I wondered, when Robbie, you were speaking, you mentioned like how Kieran Reese was like portrayed as a terrorist. So I wondered, from basically an American perspective, whether like you thought maybe the TV show DS9 may have been received better or worse, or if it would have any significance at all. You know, the difference of it being released before 9/11 or after.
I think they got away with some really great stories before 9/11 because obviously after 9/11 you have Enterprise trying to kind of tie in the Xindi arc, but I don't think Deep Space Nine would be able to get away with a lot of the stuff they did in a modern world after 9/11 because even episodes like Homefront, Paradise Lost, those two episodes, whenever I watch them, it reads exactly as if it's been written almost right after 9/11, but no, it wasn't. And that's the wonderful thing about Star Trek, and also kind of sad because sometimes it predicted what the future is like, mostly bad things. But when we rewatch these episodes, they feel real because we have a tie to them, and just by sheer coincidence that something really horrible did happen, unfortunately, it does make the episode more enjoyable because it's just because so much happened that we can now relate to. Even episodes like Past Tense, when they were not long after they aired those episodes, I'm pretty sure there were people out in the streets. I can't remember the reason why, but there was some big reason that homeless people were being pushed out to the streets, and the writers were saying in What We Left Behind that was just amazing to them because not in a good way, because they'd wrote these two episodes and now it seemed like it was coming true. And I think when you have such a long running franchise of so many episodes, you're bound to get some things right. I suppose you can look at that in a positive way and a very negative way.
So I wondered like if any of the other two co-hosts wanted to comment about that question.
I think one of the brilliant things about Deep Space Nine's writing in general is that even all these years later, there are things that have happened in our real world that we can relate to. Like I said before, I'm not so good with episode titles, but there's something about the way the show is written that makes it timeless, and that you can connect with it throughout any point in history. And I just find that endlessly fascinating, to use a Spock word.
Yeah, I think that Iro might have gone through a time machine, looked to see what was going to happen in our future, and just put it in the show. It just really seems that way. But even though there are some dark elements that have come true, there's also some. It also seems to be that there's a message overall of hope and positivity. That even when things aren't all right now, that things are going to be all right eventually. And I think that's just the general positive message of Star Trek in general. But I don't know if it could have been written as well today, because there would have been this push to make things darker, and it was already exactly the right amount of darkness in there, just because all of the shows today just focus so heavily on drama. So I don't think it wasn't just 9/11, but there are other elements that I don't think it would have done as well today, or it wouldn't have been able to be written as well today.
It's crazy to think that back then it was considered too dark, and there was so much pushback, and now you've got so many dark TV shows, and people just go with it, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. And KL Schiller commented how shows like the civilian side of life in Starfleet. I definitely would like to thank you all for coming into the discussion today. I really appreciate Deep Space Nine for showing, expanding the Star Trek franchise and everything that it's done. Thank you for coming on the show. And thanks to also those who've been watching. Thank you for watching and for commenting. Please remember to like and subscribe the video, And join us tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 a.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. UK, when we'll be speaking with makeup designer Barney Berman, who worked on the 2009 film Star Trek. Thank you very much for joining us today, and we'll see you tomorrow. Track you later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Live long and prosper.